What's up, fellow Mega Nerds? I'm Babblerab, and this is the best deck ever. I have somehow done a thing where I made a duo deck that can almost work. Keywords being almost. It's got the shenanigans. It doesn't like auto lose if it doesn't get the odd hits off, and it's actually pretty fun. So, this is the result of my brilliance and insanity, as most of my casual decks are. So this is gonna go be up there with that hand control Nubatama deck that I just came up with the top of my head. So, it's fine. And if anyone who's watching knows me in real life, you know I'm fanatically devoted to this deck, because I've been trying to make duos work ever since they tapered off and were not as effective as prisms. So I'm absolutely insane. This is probably the 6th or 7th build that I've gone through. I wish I could have documented all of them because it would have been funny to see how the deck evolves. But yeah, this is my insanity. So we're just gonna get straight to it. So we got first lesson Akari. We're not running Darling. There's a reason we're not running Darling. We need to limit the amount of combo pieces that we run in this deck, so that way if we lose one combo piece, the whole deck doesn't fall apart. So Akari helps us bounce pretty much anything we need, and that basically means that if you combo her with Chulam, you can basically get whatever you need. So it's really good, because Chulam basically says if you have a duo Vanguard, am I insane? I'm gonna find out. Yeah, when your other unit's returned to your hand from your graveyard, if you have a dual Vanguard, and she doesn't care what your Vanguard is as long as she's in harmony, so you can bounce whatever you want and then use Chulam's effect to fetch it. So it's actually really good, and it's not as many moving parts as Darling does, so that way, like I said, if something goes wrong, your entire strategy doesn't fall apart. So this deck actually does a really good job of conserving hand and not auto-losing once its combo pieces go away. Then we got 4 heal. So you do use a lot of duo counterblast in this deck, so the majority of the deck does need to be duo. So we got the duo heal. And then we're playing 8 crit, 4 of her, and then 4 Chulam. This is probably one of the stars of the deck. This card is absurd because it combos with pretty much anything. So you could use this guy off of Celebrate Voice, Loris, Olivia, Ange, like I said, Akari, and it's just absurd. I've gone many times where I just had a Chulam in hand and gone Swing Rate, Soul Blast, Skill, Bounce, put her at the put her at the top of the deck, grab the card I need, shuffle deck, done, and then Rate gets the limit break off, so it's a party. Oh, we don't play draws. Cool. We're playing 4 Crook. This is to help with multi-attacking, and I've got another card that runs in this deck too. So we're playing also the grade 1 Shizuku. So yeah, we got the Crook and the Shizuku, and then that means that we're going to have a certain card in our G-Zone that we're going to run. But yeah, so this is to help with the multi-attacking, and just puts additional pressure on the opponent, plus it recycles your triggers. And you're going to be fetching a lot of cards out of your deck, so there's a better chance you'll be seeing Crook, so you'll be getting to put her back in your deck, so you'll be hitting stand triggers. Grade 1s, I'm playing one of the Limit Break Enabler. I want to bump this up to really, really badly, because I've had times where I've been sitting at 2 or 3 damage. I'm I've got 3 cards in my hand. I could Everlasting Rate right now. Oh my gosh, I can speak correctly. So yeah, I may want to bump her up to 2 because I don't see her enough, but I don't know what I'd cut. Maybe Shizuku, maybe Stride Enabler down to 2. I don't know though. So yeah, I'm just gonna put this stuff over here. And then this card, because you need specific grade 3s pretty much at any time of the game, you need to be digging as much as possible. So we play 4 of her. That is solely, like I said, because you need to get whatever grade 3s out of your deck as quickly as possible. So you need to see Shizuku as much as possible. Plus doing this plus this harmony and then checking top 5 twice for grade 3 is just awesome. And in addition, it does help with your Everlasting Rate plays, because say you've got a Rate Vanguard and then you have all your rates are back in your deck, you can fetch your rates from deck to use for your Stride play. And then we got 3 Stride Enablers. Again, might cut her down to 2 because I do find that with the amount that Shizuku does search, I am able to see grade 3s in hand fairly frequently. But at the same time, I like also having those grade 3s available to use for other effects like riding, discarding for Everlasting Rate, etc, etc. But yeah, 3 is good, it's just the grade 1 space is really tight. 4 PG. Unflipper, you're playing duos. Duos are pretty counterblast heavy, you gotta run 4 PG. This is pretty simple. We don't actually have any ways of countercharging in the deck, and the deck doesn't need the countercharging too much, but you counterblast enough that the unflip is really nice. 4 Roan. It's Roan. She bounces anything as long as you have a dual counterblast. Like I said, the majority of the deck is duo, so therefore your skill will get off a lot. And her plus this one other card, I've gone into grade 3 at Limit Break 4 and then just gone crazy with Rate. It's really, really good. And yeah, it's duos, you should be playing 4 Roan, period. And then we got 4 Lamray. Now, this is good because the first grade 3 you want to see like 90% of the time is going to be Rate, followed up by the second grade 3, which is going to be Victoria. Nice. And the reason is that the idea is with this deck, my mentality was I'm going to go at Rate, I'm going to play really aggressively with her, get the restand off of Everlasting, etc., etc., because Everlasting will still gain the name of Rate, meaning that, and she doesn't have a bounce effect, right? So, meaning that you're going to need alternative ways to bounce if you're going into Everlasting Rate, or you just go with a Rate Vanguard stride into something that can bounce, and then if you have a Lamray on the field, you just add more Lamrays to hand for no cost. She's absurdly good because you bounce her to your hand, she fetches a copy of herself, which if you're going just for the limit break play off of Rate, it's immediately set up right there. If you're going for Everlasting Rate, you just need a Chulam, or you need to have a second one on your hand off of like a Roan or something, and you have the play. So yeah, she is... When I see her, I am very happy, and that's why I've kind of built a deck around getting her back to my deck, hence the Victorious. If Bermuda's got like a stride that basically returned your drop zone to your deck, I would be cutting Victoria like immediately and then playing something else. And then Bois for early game pressure. So in the early game, you want to see these plus possibly one of this. Reason being is that she's got on him pressure, which means you can try to get her to her hand. And then Bois, if he hits, you fetch your first grade 3. So like there's a process to playing this deck. So the idea is, like I said, you want to start with Rate, and then you're using Bois to help you get to Rate. So if you have a Victoria in your hand, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to call a Bois down, I'm going to attack. And then she's to help get to Lamray, because these are the 2 stars of the deck. So yeah, that's why we're playing 4 Bois, or 3 Bois, is because you need to see your Rates. I don't have 4. I was actually debating on playing 4 when I first crafted this deck, but I somehow don't have 4. But 3 you see enough, plus her, plus Bois, plus Roan, equals awesome. And then, because you're playing Victoria, playing 2 Quancy, I don't really ever want to see this card in my hand, ever. I want it in my deck. But it's there, and it's still an extra rearguard attack. I don't use the draw effect nearly as much, because I want to save the Counterblast for Everlasting and Temptation. But other than that, she's primarily there just so that she can be the Legion mate, and I was wanting to run more than one, just in case I damage checked it, and it has happened several times during testing. Grade 3s. 4 Rate. Like I said, this is a really unconventional duo build because most of the duo builds are the Nemwall Legion. They only run 4 grade 3s and then go for the deep draw. As you can see, this deck does not run a draw engine at all. It's geared much more towards getting the Everlasting Rates effect off, and I can get it off relatively seamlessly in the deck. So, yeah. 4 Rate, because like I said, in the process of playing this deck, she's your first step. You need her as a grade 3 first. And then as you get to later game, that's when you go into Victoria to recycle triggers, to recycle Lamrays, and then hopefully you go into a second Rate and then just go crazy again. So, the original build was actually running 3 Eternal Sister Mirror, 3 Rate, and 2 Victoria. The problem that I ran into is every single time I was on Eternal Sister Mirror, True, Eternal, oh crap, I forgot the names of the cards. It's not Eternal Sister Mirror. Absolute Sister, True Sister. It might be Eternal Sister, actually. Babblerab, make fun of me if I got it wrong. Anyway. So yeah, I was running the mirror that's Counterblast, Soul Blast, bounce a card, add it, same card from your hand. As a standalone card, it's got phenomenal utility. It's like a very, very good card just by itself because you don't have to hit anything, you don't have any weird conditions to me, it just flat out says bounce, add, put something into soul, done. And if you're playing like a mirror build, that sets up for your break red, re-break red turn. So that's good. The only problem was that I had to basically be holding her in my hand, not using her for any PG fodder, and I was sitting there going, crap, I only have 2. If I damage check one of these, or if I use this for stride, I'm not recycling anything. And then there was the problem of, why the heck am I not on rate? So, what we did is we said, screw it, we're going to cut Mirror entirely from the deck and play for Victoria. In addition, what's really nice about her is that when you're doing the Legion play, because she bounces and clones, so suppose, again, you're at your other main combo piece here, You perform Legion, you've still got one of her in your hand, you put the other 3 back, you put one like a trigger back or a rate back, and then you bounce her to your hand. Now you've got 2 in hand. So the fun continues. And then assuming you have a rate in your hand, you get to go crazy. Because basically, perform Legion, she bounces to hand, you have 2, swing, whatever, who cares. If you survive next turn, let's say you do, you ride rate, you swing rate, you soul blast, you bounce her to your hand again, you get another copy, you have 3. And then next turn, you everlasting rate them. Or, depending on how you're feeling, if you're at limit break, which it's going to be in the later stages of the game anyway. So you can probably just like use the limit break skill instead, and then you'll have another Lamray in hand to do that second time. And the restand's still a good way to put pressure on. Like if they're at 5 damage and you everlasting rate them, there are cards coming out of their hand. So it's good. It's just the issue is consistently putting pressure on. I'll find that I can definitely get off 1 everlasting rate without too much trouble every game. It's getting it a second time that I basically can't do, that I have like a lot of trouble doing. Anyway, G-Zone. Nice, it's 16 cards. G-Zone is 1 Duo Idol Emperor Cuna. This card is actually it hits a lot more than I thought it would. The only downside is, why are you an on-hit? Like, can we not have any more Vanguard on-hit things? Like, it's a waste of a first stride, unfortunately. It's a good skill for being an on-hit. It just would be infinitely better if it had a different condition that was met. And I'm really hoping in the new Bermuda set that Bushiroad gives us, like, Duo some actual better setup cards than all of this has to hit to get the effect off. Because if they guard like really early, yeah, they'll be running out of cards, but the problem is you have to gear a deck towards basically everything is going to be on hit, so they basically have to let something hit. And the problem is you're not Nubatama, so you're not already taking cards out of their hand anyway. Like like how my Nubatama deck did well, or like the hand control one, is that they were already losing cards from their hand temporarily, and then the on-hit pressure came from, I'm now going to put that card in your bind zone to your drop zone, and you already were out like a card for that turn, assuming that I didn't hit, is the thing. So you're already losing cards. The problem is that duos basically are like, you can have your full hand, and I just have these on-hit effects, and if they say, well, I'm just going to guard that, then you're just like, well, darn, I'm in trouble now, because I don't have the combo pieces I need. Hence why this deck is a lot more geared towards trying to minimize the amount of combo pieces that are required, and then just trying to recycle the combo pieces that are easy to obtain by any means whatsoever. So that's why the Lamrays are so effective in the deck. Anyway, moving on to the star of the show. This is Duo Everlasting Rate. So she's not terrible. In this deck, she's actually a pretty solid pressure card. In like previous builds, I was just like, this card is pretty bad. I don't know how to make this card work. It's actually really difficult to achieve. In this build, because you play Lamray, it's a lot easier to get to. The only downside with the deck is you're going to get it off once guaranteed, and then you're better off just like maybe going to like Olivia or Riviere. So honestly, unless I can figure out how to get this deck to more consistently get 3 cards into its hand multiple times, I'm probably going to just drop it down to 2 and play like the Riviere stride. But at least 2 and getting the effect off once is still a great pressure turn. And then we got 4 Olivia, because it's Olivia. That's really all I need to say. Like, you'll go into her more frequently after you've burnt through your first Everlasting Rate, because guess what? Like I said, you're going to get Everlasting Rate off once, and that's a promise for the most part, unless you're getting thrashed. And that's the whole story. So you pretty much need fallbacks, which unfortunately is Olivia. Well, it's not unfortunate, but like you'd like to get Everlasting Rate off a lot more. The other downside that I noticed this deck has, it's got a very weak first stride. So if you're not at GB2 or at Limit Break, you basically, this is your option. And it's going to take a PG out of the hand, but at the same time, like I said, why are duos still getting on hit skills? Okay. 1 Angie, Link Joker matchup. 1 Priscilla. You can get to GB8 with this deck because it still does generate quite a bit of a hand advantage. And 1 copy of Celebrate Voice Loris. Now this is in the odd chance that you have Crooks and Shizuku's on the field and everything's in harmony. Or in the case where you've got like a bunch of Chulums or whatever, because she bounces like your entire field, you can bounce like a ton of combo pieces that you need and then use like Chulum or using Lamray's skill to bounce to hand. And like I said, because she's not hard card specific, or not like I said, but like because she's not hard card specific, and as long as you have something with rate in its name or a Duo Vanguard, she gets the Duo Vanguard name, you're basically golden. So yeah, it can bounce your whole field to your hand, which can get a bunch of cards to your hand. Which, like I said, Chulum, Lamray, etc., etc. Heck, you could even use Quansi if you wanted to. Yeah, I have not used Angie a single time since trying the deck. I've used Loris like once in test draws, and I've gone to GB8 at least once. The main thing that usually happens with the deck is you go her first every time unless you G-guard or you're at limit break. Her like on pretty much the next turn, and then blah, blah, possibly blah, maybe, and then if late game that, or you just die. But this deck is still like the shenanigans this deck pulls is like, oh my god, I have fallen in love with duos again because of this deck. And this is just crazy homebrew decks once again. G-Guards. 1 Citron, 2 Leona. There's a reason for the 2 Leona, because if you left Chulum on the field, nice, we got that Chulum right there, or if you have a Rate Vanguard, and you bounce with Leona, you sure you gotta call something to guard with, but you can clone the card and you can get more Lamray on your opponent's turn. So if your opponent's not playing Kagero, I would not do this against Kagero. If you value keeping your rear guards, then you would go like, well, let's see. You wouldn't do it against Link Joker, Dominate, Narukami, Kagero. Those are the big ones. I know there's other clans that have little bits of retiring and whatnot, so like Tachikaze, Shadow Paladin, etc., etc. So as long as they survive till the battle phase and you're like, well, I'm just gonna go Leona, get the extra guard, then you're set. And it doesn't matter what you call from your hand to guard with Leona either, so you could still bounce your Lamrays. And then Sandy's obviously because you have like, between the amount of filtering that you do with this girl right here and the amount of extra stuffs you get back to your hand off of this and this and this, you're gonna have a bunch of cards sitting around that don't exactly have a phenomenal guard value, but it's still just sheer numbers. So it means that Sandy is gonna be able to get pretty big, so that's really good. What it also could mean is that I may go and play 2 Sandy just because of the amount of extra dead cards in my hand. Not dead, but like defensively dead. Combo pieces for the next turn, they're phenomenal. So yeah, I'm just gonna give a quick show through of how like the process of the game should usually go under like mostly ideal settings. So your early game, pre-grade 3, you should have at least, if you can, have a Roan and a Bois. This should be what your field will look like. And again, these will take guards out of your opponent's hand. So they're either losing hand coming into grade 3, or you get a limit break / a card. Ideally, if you have Roan, you want to see a Lamray. I don't always see Lamray, but whatever. This deck filters more than Pacifica does, so I can get 2 Lamrays, and not seeing a Lamray right off the bat is not the end of the world because it can be fetched. Or not fetched, but like you thin your deck enough that you'll see it. On this first grade 3 ride, she needs to be your first grade 3. If you go into her, you're in a bit of trouble. Which is, like I said, why the Bois are needed. Because you have the Bois to get to the rates. You need to have rate as your first grade 3. If you don't, well then your new strategy falls to how much can I filter with Shizuku until I see her. So once you're on rate, you're pretty much smiling because then the whole deck just comes online. When you're on rate, you're basically stratting into whatever the heck you want and then profiting off of this. Because like that's the whole deck, like I said. Now, it's not entirely the end of the world if you are on Victoria. It's just ideal for you to be on rate because it gets her online. If you're on Quansi, whatever, you're gonna have to just play normal Bermuda stride crap. But ideally you want to be on rate because that makes it your power play a lot easier. So your first stride is most likely gonna end up being Kyuna. Who cares? Then after that, you probably won't hit. I've hit like a few times with her, but she doesn't hit most of the time. So whatever, like, I mean, let me rephrase. If this is your field, and then she's sitting right here, and then there's like boosters or whatever, suddenly it's like, well, what do I want to hit with? Because these guys are both going to fetch her, and then she's going to fetch something from hand. So there are situations where you've basically got 3 on-hit attacks, and then your opponent's just like, I don't really feel like guarding all of this. And you're like, good, I don't want you to guard all of this. But anyway, so yeah, you're on her, whatever, your first attack, who cares? And then ideally on your second stride, when you're at limit break 4, you should be able to go for her. And then this is where you're taking cards out of your opponent's hand. Like I said, downside is afterwards, you're kind of forced into Olivia because you've exhausted, like I said, you've discarded 3 copies, or not like I said, but you have discarded 3 copies of the same card, so you're going to need to now build up your combo pieces, unfortunately, which means it's time to now go into Olivia, because Olivia is like the only way you're going to get multi-attacking off. This isn't like the exact way to play the deck, but yeah. So at this point, you're now kind of just digging with Shizuku to hopefully find a copy of her. And then afterwards, if you have a spare Lamray in hand, you would call it down to rearguard, ride, perform Legion by returning the other Lamrays, bounce the Lamray to hand for next turn, and then attack. And that's pretty much how I've theory crafted how the deck would play. Yeah. So just a summary, not that I think it's really needed, I'm probably just going on and on and on, but that's okay. Is early game, you want to get the on hit so that you can get to your combo pieces for late game. Your mid game is going to be you're sitting on a rate Vanguard, which is going to be when you're trying to deal like the most amount of damage. Your first stride's most likely going to be Cuna if you're at limit break, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so as I was saying, in conclusion, this deck is actually a ton of fun to play. Casually, it's great. In terms of like actual competitive games, don't expect to win too many. I've seen like shortcomings of this deck. As cool the design is, and as much as it does like flow most of the time, you are still playing duos, unfortunately, and I don't mean to take a shot at all the duo players out there, but it's still not the strongest Bermuda build. This is one heck of a fun duo build though. And yeah, it's definitely reignited my like interest in the subclan. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Any suggestions about the deck, same as before. What do you guys think about duos and like what they're going to be getting in the next Bermuda set, I guess? Because we did see that Mirror card there. I'm hoping that Mirror might get some more decent support, like maybe a really solid stride. But at the same time, it'd be really nice to see something like this, just some generic duo support as opposed to like Mirror specific. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where it gets. Like, come to think of it, because if you think how Honored Professors worked, Chat Noir got a break stride kind of thing, where it allowed you to stride during the battle phase. Prisms have that, so I don't think, maybe that new Mirror stride's actually going to allow you to do like perform a break ride during the battle phase. If that's the case, ooh, now that would be something. And that also might turn this entire deck's plan on its head. I don't know how I'd go about that, especially if like we're allowed to do that. We're like, okay, now I need to go and like elaborate a little bit. So assume the duo stride is basically like discard whatever amount of cards from your hand. Put this card in your G zone, choose a card from your hand, stride it, or ride it on top. Now you perform break ride, swing rate. Oh no, we're doing rate mirror things now. Counterblast 2, restand, attack again. That's like 3 Vanguard attacks. And your whole field bounces to your hand, you call 2. Or however many again. Like, oh my gosh. I'm not gonna lie, if that was the thing, I would kind of start playing duos more than I've already kind of take my prisms apart. But I would actually start playing duos at a more competitive level, because I think there's potential for it to do stuff. Especially since it could go and attack like 3 times, which I don't think is okay in any means. The amount of setup that would be required is a lot though. Which is probably why you would do like, you'd probably play like a Lamray or something in that, so you can just get the rate straight off. But anyway, I'm possibly going to make some videos like talking about what each of the subclans needs, particularly talking about the ones I have a lot of experience with. So duos, Pacifica, Reindeer, Shushu for sure. I don't have as much knowledge about Harmony, Prisms, and Corals, Riviere. I think that's the whole extent of it. Forgive me if I missed a Bermuda deck. But yeah, so I might talk about that. It's going to depend on schoolwork plus interest and time, but I think it'd be a cool video series to make, talking about like my personal experience with the decks, what they're going to be, and what I think they would need for the next set. Like one big thing that I've always talked about how duos need is just a non-hitting bounce clone effect, just some way for them to gain advantage without having to like literally climb a freaking mountain each time to get the card. But as one of my friends said, it could result in the deck being broken in half, but I don't really know how much I care about that. Duos have kind of been thrown under the bus since Blessing of Divas, really. Like, Academy Divas, they actually got some pretty sweet stuff with Eternal Sister Mirror and the Nemo Legion, but since then, the support's been pretty bad, not gonna lie. Okay, so that was the whole of my duo deck. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. If you have any suggestions for the deck or any questions about the deck, once again, comments below. And other than that, I am Babblerab, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.